everybody, and welcome to this week's Bodacity Show. We actually don't have an interview today, which I didn't realize until a couple minutes ago. Well, okay, 15 minutes ago. And so we have a mentor's moment instead, which is actually perfect, as it always is. So mentor's moments are when I talk to you or do some teaching around some things that I've learned or realized, or content that you've been asking about. And the Bodacity Show is when we interview subject matter experts, perhaps like you, who are interested in supporting women in business women on the grow to expand on their inner and outer game of business. So if you are someone who's interested in speaking, please DM me and reach out. I'd be happy to talk to you to see whether or not it's content that fits for this group, and if we can arrange to have you on the show. Today, I want to get into some things that I've learned recently, some by the hard way. The original description that I wrote when I was just going to go on Facebook Live instead of doing a Zoom recording as well, were 4 ways to piss off industry leaders and how to not be a dumbass. That was the description of today's topic. I don't know what I called it when I rewrote it, but here's what I want to do today is share with you some realizations that I had recently. In fact, the 4 points came to me as a full-blown speech at 5 o'clock in the morning, which was super annoying because I've been very sick ever since the Marketer's Cruise, have a bad flu, and really needed sleep, really still need sleep. So getting woken up at 5 a.m. in the morning with this wonderful inspiration, and it was actually this full-blown speech. It was really funny. It even made me laugh, and it was in great detail. The whole thing rolled out. So those are inspirations from the universe that you're meant to do something with, and it just turned out and was perfect because later that day I was in a mastermind meeting. Let me get myself sorted. There we go. Okay. I don't like when I'm not aligned and, okay. So I was in a mastermind meeting later that day with a bunch of industry leaders, people who run tribes and who have communities and who sell online programs and training, subject matter experts, coaches, authors, speakers, some people who had physical products, people I've been in a mastermind with for 3 years now. We were talking about what are some of the challenges of our industry, the industry of the kind of online expertpreneur world, where people are providing other people with education and, in theory, transformation to support them in their lives. And so it's everything in the areas of personal development and spiritual growth and health and wellness and money making and business and all of those different areas that you can buy programs and services on. Largely delivered online, especially because of COVID. This expertpreneur industry has been around a long time. If you know me, you have probably heard me do some rants about the fact that I actually believe that this industry, are taking more people out of entrepreneurship than we're putting in, and frankly, it pisses me off to no end. Part of the reason why I believe that's happening is because many of the gurus on the top of the mountain, while perhaps well-meaning, are selling what I call pieces of the profit plane. So one is selling the wings of a Cessna, the other is selling the engine of a 747. And these pieces are important and valuable when you know what kind of plane you're building. Like, do you want a 747 to take a movement somewhere? Or do you want a Cessna or a hang glider because you have a lifestyle business? When you know what kind of plane you're building and you have the schematic, in other words, a really clear business model and customer journey mapped out and all of those pieces that allow you to know exactly what you're doing, where you're going, and what vehicle you need, then you need to buy those parts to put together your profit plane. But if you don't have a clear schematic, if you don't have your pilot's license, and most importantly, in my mind, if you don't have what I call your your revenue runway, a reliable, consistent way of getting clients, then you don't have a place for your profit plane to take off and land on. And if that's the case, then there's no point in building a plane because you're just going to crash. So I have been really getting tired of having clients and prospects come to me and say, I would love to work with you. Oh my God, I wish I found your solution first or earlier. I've spent tens of thousands and in some case, hundreds of thousands of dollars and have so little to show for it. It's because they're buying the wrong thing at the wrong time. It's because they're buying the wrong solution for them and their style. It's because they don't want to be an entrepreneur, but think they should. It's because they've got too many inner blocks that are getting in the way, whether that's worthiness, a not enough story, and they need some support with inner work, or it's because they are, again, not clear on and don't have a foundation in place, and they're trying to build a big high rise with no foundation. So one of the things that I don't like seeing in our industry is people who are selling these leverage solutions, one-to-many solutions, like creating a course, creating, speaking, masterminds, all of these things that require you to sell multiple people. They are all viable and valuable at the right time for the right person in the right order. The problem is these promises that they're making, launch an online course, make $100,000, from your first launch. First of all, most of the time, the promises are not true. Let me be very clear, very frank. When they say that, that is the exception to the rule, not the rule. And even in the exception to the rule, like even in their case, often they might make 100,000, but it might cost them $110,000 to make that, or they might make $10,000 worth of profit on it. So it's really important to ask about the reality of the promises. What is the profit on those things on the amounts that they've made? But that's a whole other side segue. When I got this download for this, so this is one of my favorite rants because I really want our industry to stop doing what they're doing. And what that means is stop selling people who are not at that stage solutions that are ahead of where they're at, because they're selling these solutions, the profit plane at the top of the mountain, to people who are either at the bottom of the mountain starting out or somewhere on their way up. And these things do work when you have infrastructure and a big list and influence, and you know what you're selling to who and how, and you're very clear on the problem you're solving. You know what your customer journey is, and you know how to sell and market, fill your funnel, and convert people into clients. Then those one-to-many solutions can help you leverage and have a bigger impact. So they do work. You want to find the one that fits for you. But they don't work if you don't have all of that in place. And so I get so frustrated with people who sell solutions that need all of that in place and aren't yet. And they know that those people will not be successful if that's not in place. But they sell them their $10 or $15 or $20,000 program or $25,000 or $50,000 program anyway. It's out of integrity, it's out of alignment, and it's not okay. So it's one of the 4 challenges that I gave this group of people. They were talking about leadership, and this was at the Soulful Affiliate Alliance retreat with Mark Porteous. Mark's got a heart of gold and really is trying to bring together soulful leaders who care about people, who want to do business differently, to really start to make concrete what does it mean to do business in a soulful or heart-based way. So they were talking about all sorts of grandiose things and being the leaders that make the difference in the world, and we have to lead from integrity and from heart. And I stood up and said, okay, let me talk about 4 things that need to change in our business if we're actually going to walk our talk. The first is stop selling things to people who are not ready for them. I understand the need and the desire to make money. And when someone is there saying, I want in your community, I need what you've got, and they don't yet, it's so hard to turn them down. It's hard to turn away that $10,000 or $15,000, especially if you've got tight cash flow. I so get it. And karmically, ethically, and in every way, it is not truly profitable to bring them into our communities when they're not there. because they're not going to get ROI. They won't be a good case study. They won't be a good testimonial, and they won't be someone that you feel good about actually helping in the long run, because you know that they're not really ready. So the first thing I said was, how about we stop that practice, which means you have to be willing to be very clear and honest with people about what you can help them with and what you can't. At these events, and I've been on both sides of the fence, approximately 80% of the room is not really ready for the offer that is being made. And yet, many, many, many of those people end up buying it. It's tough to do all the work to put those people in a room. It's tough to spend all the money, invest all the time, have all of that risk, and then to turn people away who could potentially benefit somewhat from what we have, but they're not ready. So don't do it. So that was point number one. Point number two was related to that, the difference between education and transformation. And so I'm telling you these 4 points so that you as leaders or future leaders of tribes can remember them, can build them into your culture, to your thinking about how you're going to create your products and your services. And if you've already got a successful business, great, go back and see whether or not this applies to you. And be honest about whether or not you've done it, because we've all done it. And so how do we work around that? How do we create systems and processes that help us to not have to do that? So for example, in our event marketing, how do we make sure we've got more of the right people that are tightly focused on what stage we serve, versus getting all sorts of, kind of aspirational wannabe people into our courses? Where I see this a lot is in, for instance, JV events. Truly, maybe 10% of the people in those events are JV ready, meaning they are ready to joint venture. They have a concrete product that they know will convert. They have the infrastructure in place. They know how to work with JV partners. And yes, they do need to learn how to do that, but most of them, not yet, and not for a while. So, okay, so that's rant number one, is please don't sell people until it's a good fit. Have the integrity to say no to money, even though you really want to serve them, you really want to support them, but it's not the ideal fit or the right time. And just stay in touch with them. Or better yet, give them to an affiliate partner like me, who gets them ready for leverage, so that they have that foundation in place, can give them back to you and say, okay, now they can do the leveraged offerings because they know who they are, where they're going and what they're doing, what the problem is they're solving, and for who and how. Okay, that's number one. Number two is transformation versus education. You may have heard me say this quote before from Nido Cobain when I asked him what the difference was between an educational speech and a transformational speech. He said, if it's educational, I need to figure out what they need to do. If it's transformational, I need to figure out who they need to be. Brilliant piece of advice to apply to our trainings, to our coaching, to anything we're doing when we're working with other people, from consulting with high-level executives to doing training for kids. Anything that you are doing, if you truly want it to be transformational, we have to deal at the level of being, meaning how do they need to be in order to change the current actions and behaviors that are getting them the results they're currently getting, so they can get new results. So most people are not creating truly transformational programs and structures. Here are some ways that you know that it's not. One, you haven't really asked yourself and built in any kind of content around being. And I don't care if you're selling how to sell real estate flipping, or spiral dynamics, or allergy kits, or anything. If there is an element of the person needs to make a change, i.e. transform some part of their actions, behaviors, and results, then you must address the being that needs to shift. Why might that person not be successful in real estate? Why might that person not be willing to embrace their health and wellness? What is the block that is stopping them from wanting to be different, which then leads to different thoughts, different actions, and different results. So number one, do you address the being component of that? Number two, do you support with implementation? It is time for us to stop drop and go education. The world does not need more information. For the love of God, we have enough. Not only that, it is now a commodity. Information used to be a valuable asset. Now it's a commodity. As a business person, you really have to understand the difference between an asset and a commodity. Commodities are cheap. They get based on price. It's nowhere near as valuable as something that people highly value, an asset that they will pay for. Information is free everywhere and cheap and easy to come by. So you can get information anywhere for free. And if you are just simply providing information and you're trying to sell it, you're fighting an uphill battle. If you are providing transformation, which means they'll get a different result, then you must provide implementation support of some kind, because human nature is simply that. If we simply get information, we likely will not make any changes. In most cases, it's not that we don't know, it's that we don't do what we know. And for most people, it's because they don't have accountability for a different set of actions. There's a great book called Change or Die by Alan Deutschman. He talks about 3 things required for change, for actual transformation. He looked at people who were literally told, if you do not change your behavior, you will die. Only 10% of people actually change. 10% of people in that situation. And we're not talking hyperbole. We're talking people who will die if you don't change. Only 10% change. Why is that? They don't have the 3 R's. The first R is you must have a structure that allows you to repeat the new behavior and that keeps you accountable for it. So repetition. It's just like going to the gym. It's learning any new habit. If you don't repeat it, it will not stick. The second is reframe. You must see the situation yourself, the thing you're trying to learn from a different perspective. If you keep looking through the same eyes, you're going to keep seeing the same view. So you must reframe and come from a different perspective on what it is you're trying to be, do, or have. And the third is relate. You must have a community of support that sees you through fresh eyes. That's what I call it. He doesn't call it that. Because when we have people who see us through the old eyes of who we were, they knew us as who we have been, but they don't necessarily know us as who we are becoming, then it's really challenging to change, because we tend to default to being who we think people see us as and want us to be. Human nature. So if you want to overcome your human nature and defaults, we need to have a community who sees us with fresh eyes so that we can step into who we're becoming. We need to reframe our perspective on what hasn't been working to a different one that does work. In other words, we need to tell a new, better story than the story we've been telling. And 3, we need a structure for repeating that and supporting both of those components in order to create a new habit, a new way of being, so that we can create change. If that is not built into your program or your offering, if you don't have some form of community or support to keep that person engaged in that transformation, if you don't have a way for them to see themselves differently and see the problem differently, to reframe who they are so that they can then access a new way of being in that change of behavior, and if you don't have implementation support, then you're not going to get results, and neither will they. It's just that simple. So we really do truly need a structure that supports transformation. Who do they need to be? And then how can you incorporate the 3 R's? That's one of the ways that you can truly be an actually results-getting coach. You can be an inspiring and transformational speaker. You can apply that in the content that you create, the books, the courses, anything. And so I'm challenging leaders to say, stop dumping information. All that does is widens the gap between what people know and what they're doing. Provide implementation support so that they actually do the work and get the results. That's point number 2, transformation versus versus education. Number 3 is, I think that's what we're on, is the 20/80 rule. I really want us to flip it. Currently in this industry, again, the expertpreneur world, the online internet marketing / education world, the world of entrepreneurs that are growing their businesses, approximately 20%, and this depends on the sector of the industry, but it's actually probably fairly generous. 20% of people finish the programs that they buy, do all the work and finish it. In evergreen programs, it's even less. It's anywhere from 3 to 8%, depending on the evergreen program, meaning there is no live component. It's just content that you consume. Think about that. 3 to 8% of people are getting any value out of your programs. Well, there's so many words running through my head that are pretty judgy, so I'll just say that's not actually effective. And 20% are finishing programs where there even is a live component. Now, I've heard stats from 30 to 50. Frankly, I don't believe that. Mine and others that I know of that pull that stat up because we have high completion rates. There are people like Danny Inney, for instance, who has high completion rates because he has a tremendous amount of team. He has lower profitability because he really invests in the infrastructure of support structures. He has a ton of coaches and support for people. Then there's people like Marusha Murgatroyd, who have highly gamified their courses and made them really interesting and engaging, and have done a lot of work and invested a lot of money in gamification and teaching people how to do gamified courses. There are lots of different ways to create engagement in your programs, not the least of which is to build in accountability and implementation support. The more we do that, the more people complete. It's that simple. Now, I want you to think about it from this very practical perspective. Many people in our industry will just shrug and say, well, that's just human nature. That's just the way it is. People are just lazy or not willing to do the work. Frankly, I want to speak to each of the leaders out there, and you're not going to like me to saying this, Ben. Frankly, I don't care. It's not them that's lazy and unwilling to do the work. It's us. As leaders, it's our job to make sure people get across the finish line. It's our job to do what it takes to make sure that no one is left behind. It's not their job. Yes, they are adults, they're accountable, they're responsible for their learning. Yes, I get all that. Really, truly are committed to making a difference, then it's your job too. So, to support that, we need more implementation support, more accountability, and we need to simply care more, which I'm going to talk about in my next point. We need to care about the people in our courses. We need to, first of all, like I said, make sure they're a good fit for it, that this is appropriate for them, or they're going to struggle and they're not going to do it. That's as simple as it gets. If you put someone in grade 1 and grade 6, they're not going to get value because they're not there. It doesn't make sense to them. Now, if you went to a surgeon who had a 20% success rate, would you go under the knife? If you went to a financial planner who promised you that at least 20% of their clients make money, would you hire them? And yet we seem to think it's okay for us to deliver 20% results. I'm really working to not swear a lot during this program, but frankly, it just pisses me off so much, which is why instead of putting up a pre-recorded show, I decided to do this and just talk about this because it's so much on my heart these days. And I did just have this conversation with a room of about 40 leaders in our industry, and some of them were really pissed off and some of them were really inspired. We need to have this conversation more. We need to be honest. And those of you who are coming up in your business need to think about this and take it to heart about how to build it in as you grow, how to have it be part of your thinking and your structure. So the whole goal here is to flip 20% completion for 80% completion. Here's the truth. There are some people that, as good as you filter, are still not actually ready. They might look like it, they might look good on paper, they might say they're ready, but they're really not. There are some people who are just oppositionally defined and will not do it anyways. They're just rebels, and you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And so as much as we try and filter those out, sometimes you get that. There are some people who have life circumstances come up and they can't complete for some reason or another. And please, in those cases, give them grace, give them an opportunity to do it again later, give them their money back, as hard as that is, even if you have to pay it back over time. Please be the kind of person that you would want to have on the other side if you were in that circumstance. To flip that, yes, the 80% is probably perhaps the most we can aspire to, because there will be people who are oppositionally defiant. There will be people who can't complete it. And there will be people who just are not capable, who think they want to be entrepreneurs and so forth, but then discover that that's not really their path, or this is not really the direction they want to go in. They actually want to go in this market or do this kind of approach. That's okay. But 20% is not okay. So please, for the love of God, let's flip that stat. So make your goal to make sure that you have a higher completion rate. I recommend at least 80%. I shoot for 100, and I got about 96% because people have life come up. But I build it into how I do what I do so that I can make sure that people get through the process and the program with support, with what they need. If I have to drag them kicking and screaming at times, if I need to provide a kick in the context, have a real come to Jesus conversation, build in recommitment, build in wins. Make sure that you build your programs or your services or your coaching with adult education principles in mind so that you can really help people learn. There's so much that you can do that makes a difference to people's results, which ultimately makes a difference to your results. Think about what would happen to your business if you had 4 times more recommendations, right? Or 3 times more recommendations, 3 times more testimonials, 3 times more case studies of successes. What would that do for you and your business and your ability to sell and enroll and make a difference in more lives? So let's flip the stat. Instead of 20% completion, let's go for 80% completion. So that's point number 3. And then the 4th point that I'll wrap up with quickly is I want you to write this question down. If you are a leader, if you are planning to build a business, and particularly if you consider yourself to be a heart-based or soul-based or innovative leader, this question is actually very practical and is so needed in this century, is as we redefine business as we go forward. How do you scale love? Write down, how do you scale love? So what I mean by that is we talk about scaling our business, our revenue, our impact, and you can have metrics for all of those. Scaling my impact means I reach this many people, I'm in front of that many audiences, I have that many more people on my list. Scaling my revenue, very simple. We have revenue goals and we grow those, and we have tactics to achieve that. Scaling our business, we go from dream builder to practice builder to business builder to impact builder to legacy builder. Those are the 5 stages of the business success roadmap I've created. And we know how to get from one to the other in terms of the stages of our business, the strategies that apply. There are ways to create processes and systems for scaling each of those things. What we don't strategize around, what we don't include in our planning, is how to scale love. Because what will get those people to the 80% completion is love. What will get those people to transform is love. What will get those people to buy the right thing and get results and be the difference that they're here to be is love. So how do we scale love in our business? How do you stay in touch with people? How do you know who your customers are as you scale? How do they not just become a number or a dollar sign or a bum in a seat? How do you scale love in your culture? Working with your subcontractors, how do your people treat people? How do you make it a part of your cultural values and processes so that it becomes systemic in your business? How do you scale love is the kind of question that innovative thought leaders, The people who are building the kind of businesses that will actually make a difference to how we do business in the world, and how we do business in the world makes a difference to how people are treated. Economics drives social conscience. Economics drives wealth distribution. Economics drives politics, healthcare, education. So how we do business impacts everything, which is why I am such a stand for women to step up, be successful in business, and reinvent how we do it. And one of the ways that we want to reinvent is to actually ask questions like, how do we scale love? So that we can stay connected to people in practical ways, so that we know we're making a difference to those people, so that we know who they are, what they need, and how we can serve them, or how we can serve them by passing them on to affiliate partners and other people. How do we play that bigger collaborative game so that people have the solutions they need to, again, to be the difference that only they can be, which is the goal of Bodacity, which is my stand in the world. So the 4 things that I want you to think about as a leader of tomorrow, or a leader of today that is bringing about a different tomorrow, is, and I want you to hear, I believe every one of you is a leader in your family, in your community, with yourself first, and all of these can be applied to you, with your family, in your community, in your business, whatever it may be, or your job, or your volunteer work. You're a leader of new thoughts, of new ways of being, of bringing more heart and more love into the world, of practically grounding that in the tangible. That's what Bodacity is, being bold enough to be you, to be fully expressed, and to make the difference you can make. You don't have to be grandiose. You just have to be effective, my friend. And these are some things that will help you be effective. So, number 1, only sell things to people who are at that stage and need what you have. Refer them on if they're not, and have a good filtering process. Please stop selling the wrong things to the wrong people at the wrong time. Number 2, be a stand for transformation, not just education. How can you really help them implement it and have it make a difference to who they're being, what they're doing, and what they have? Number 3, let's flip the 80-20 to 80% completion of whatever it is that you're offering, so that people get across the finish line. More people get across the finish line. You have better results. They have better results. It's a win-win all the way around. Let's flip the stat. Be committed. And if you are, I really want you to just say, put on a Post-it, I am committed to 80% completion or more, if that's true for you. If you want to say 100%, great, because you'll probably hit 80, because there is human nature and shit happens, but commit to 100%. That's even better. That is actually my goal, is I want every single person to get value out of the work we do together, period. That's it. And the last one is, how do you scale love? What practical systems and processes can you put in place to make sure your people experience your heart, feel seen, heard, and valued? I was just finished being at another event on Sunday and yesterday. And it was amazing. It's always amazing to me how many people stand up and say, this was life-changing for me. When in reality, all that happened in that room was people felt understood. They felt seen. They felt valued. And in that, it changed their life. It made a difference because they knew that they mattered. So we don't have to do a lot. We just need to show up and love people. And that changes everything. But if you're a business owner, you got to figure out how to do that in your business, not just in your heart. These are my challenges to you as leaders, to say to you, please help me and others in this transformational journey we're on our planet. Help yourself. You'll have a more successful business. You'll have more fun. You'll have more love in your life. You'll have more success. And really help your clients by being in integrity for them in all of those ways. You will be the kind of leader that makes even more of a difference. It isn't easy, but it is simple. So, my friends, if you have any questions or comments, if you disagree, if you have other perspectives, please put them in the chat. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to have conversations around this. We had a great conversation in the meeting that I was in. And like I said, some people didn't like it, some people really did. And it makes a difference for us to make sure that we're reminding one another to be the change that we want to see in the world. So thank you for putting up with my coughing and my hacking and so forth. I love you. I appreciate you being here and listening to this. And again, if you have any comments or questions, if you'd like to find out more about me and my work and how I help you put that revenue runway in place, I would love to talk to you and see if it's what you need or what you do need at the stage you're at that I could perhaps refer you to. And that's all we need to do, is simply show up, have a great sphere of people that we can work with, and provide the solutions to the people that are looking for them. I often say to my clients who are coaches that we have one of the best jobs in the world because we get paid to simply love people. It's not more complex than that. Okay, it's a bit more complex, but at its heart, that is what it's about. So go out today in whatever way that is, love people, and I encourage you to simply sit down and write out after this, how are you doing in those 4 areas? Be really scrupulously honest with yourself. If you're not sure, go ask your clients. In fact, go ask them anyways, so that you can check your perceptions. And then also write out a plan for how you're going to address that. I just inspired myself. I'm actually going to send out a survey to all of my previous clients about how I did in those 4 arenas. And in terms of them feeling loved, feeling like I had their back throughout the process and completion, transformational versus educational content, and making sure that they were the right fit for the program. To get some feedback on that concretely, to make sure that I'm not blowing smoke up my own butt, and that I'm really doing what I know I need to do to be the difference that I'm here to be. Thank you for watching this, persevering with all the coughing. I wish you a bodacious week. And I am happy to have conversations with any of you about this topic. I think it's only in the conversations that we can really start to explore how we're going to be the change here. Take care. Have a bodacious week. Lots of love.